get started tonight. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the second part of our College 101 webinar series. My name is Jenny Lansing and I'm one of the PLU admission counselors, and I'm really excited to meet all of you here tonight. Thank you so much for being here. And so we're going to be talking about the college application and specifically how to land in the yes pile. This is all part of the college search process, and I know this journey can feel super overwhelming or even scary. So my goal for everyone tonight is to make sure you feel confident in navigating the college application. We are going to be using the Q&A function tonight. And I'm joined here with one of my colleagues in the Office of Admissions. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, they'll be helping me alongside to answer some questions you have. But if we do have time at the end, then we will be going some questions together. We'll be going over them together. And just as a reminder, yesterday we did have the college search process and where to get started, and tomorrow we'll be going over the college essay and how to write in confidence. But tonight we're going to be focusing in on how to land in the yes pile. So let's get started. So some of the items that we'll be covering today are the application websites and where to get started with applying to colleges and universities. Another thing is understanding the requirements that colleges are looking into when it comes to your application. Tonight, we'll be using this acronym called TREAT, and it stands for Transcript, Letter of Recommendation, Essay, Application, and Test Scores. Not all applications or colleges have the same requirements, but this could be a good framework to keep in mind as you're navigating your own application. So starting off with the application websites, where are you starting to apply to these universities and colleges? So different websites offer different opportunities. As you can see, there are three various ways to apply to a university. The first way being the Common App, which is streamlined general application to many schools. And so basically what it is a website where students can apply to multiple colleges all in one place. So it's a much more easier and efficient way to apply to a university just because all of the information regarding the college application is all in one spot. So you can keep track of your progress with these applications. Over 1,000 colleges and universities are on the Common App, so it's a much more common way to apply to a school. And just know that students can send in a maximum of 20 applications, so don't hold yourself back from all the colleges you're interested in. But something you do want to keep in mind is that there are application fees, so that's just something to think about. The base application to use the Common App is free. However, there are some universities, again, that require that application fee. But for example, with PLU, we don't have an application fee and we're free to apply to, so that's definitely something to consider. Another way to apply to a university are the university websites. And so more schools are moving towards the Common App. However, that doesn't mean it's the only option. And so with the university websites, there are applications to individual schools, including transfer opportunities. So let's say, for example, you're a transfer student who intends on applying to PLU. You can apply through a PLU website. And there are many other transfer applications tend to be similar as well, but you just want to go on the school's website to see if that application is there. Another way to apply to a university is our direct admission opportunities, right? So maybe you've heard of niche direct admission, or maybe you've even heard of the school-specific automatic admission. So for example, at PLU, we have our Automatic Admission Partnership, or AAP for short. And so some of you may be familiar with it. And so what it is that we have a partnership with certain high schools in Washington State where we look for students who have a weighted 3.3 GPA or higher and have completed up to Algebra 2. And so for a student who is eligible, they will receive an email and they get to complete a form that takes about 5 to 10 minutes to complete. Something I want to point out with our automatic admission to PLU is that if a student is eligible, they can complete the form and it's their application to the university. So you can either choose a Common App to apply or through that automatic admission. So I know with other universities, sometimes you have that guaranteed admission, and then you have the guaranteed admission, you complete the form, but then also you have to do the Common App. But again, with PLU, it's just one or the other format. So whatever you would like to complete. And then there is the WAL Gap, which is our Washington Guaranteed Admission Program. And so if you're interested in applying to one of these 6 public universities in Washington, that is an opportunity you have as well. But when in doubt, ask your admission counselor if you're not sure which format that you want to apply to with our with the applications. So now we get to dive into the TREAT acronym, right? The first T in TREAT stands for transcript. A student's transcript can play an important part in the college application because we want to see that you can thrive in a college environment, right? But as professionals in a university setting, there's a certain lens in which we view a student's transcript. So one of the things we look for are grade trends, for example. We understand that when it comes to grade trends that sometimes life happens, right? And so you're balancing so many things in high school and navigating this journey. And so we understand that if your grades might have taken a little bit of a dip. And so what's meaningful for us as admission counselors, if we can see that upward grade trend, right? We want to see that you're growing from your academic journey. And so we understand, right, you're more than the final GPA or those final grades from junior and senior year. And so we take a look at your academic journey as a whole. Another thing we also consider are your course rigor, right? So you might have taken those honors courses, AP, IB, or Cambridge courses, maybe even a dual enrollment credit through a college or college in the high school or even a running start. And so when it comes to those courses, it does help us paint a bigger picture to see your academic journey. So we take that into consideration as well when we're reviewing your transcript. Another thing that we also look into is your senior year's course selection. That can also be another thing when we're looking at your transcript. I know there are some universities out there, typically a public university, that strongly takes into consideration the amount of science, math, or English a student has taken throughout their high school journey. So sometimes it might look like taking 4 years of math or science. But there are some schools out there who don't necessarily mind that. So like take PLU, for example, we're not necessarily looking at how many years of math, science, or English a student has taken. But if you want to demonstrate you're ready for college level courses, especially if your grades have been a little bit lower, then it can help us when reviewing your application. So it's a little bit harder to see a student's like academic growth when you've taken like TA courses or elective courses. And so taking those like traditional courses, for example, during your senior year can definitely help a lot again to see that bigger picture and seeing your academic growth. And another thing we consider when it comes to the transcript are your weighted versus unweighted courses in GPA. So it's kind of going back to the point of like those course rigors. So here at PLU, we do weigh a student's GPA, right? So we want to make sure students have an equitable and equal playing field, and we understand the rigorous nature of those courses, right? So like AP, Honors, IB, and Cambridge will be weighted when we're reviewing your application. And so I know there are some states that will weigh those GPA. Again, just understanding how those courses are pretty rigorous compared to like a traditional course, whereas I know in Washington State, courses are not weighted, so the maximum GPA is a 4.0. But again, here at PLU, we want students to have that, again, that equitable, equal playing field, and so we honor the credits that you've taken. And there are other universities as well who will also weigh your GPA. So again, when in doubt, ask an admission counselor through this process. You also want to consider your unofficial versus official transcript, right? You want to understand what you need to turn in during your college application. So the main difference between the two really is the official transcript shows your graduation date. It's signed by your high school counselor or the registrar's office, and you can send it in through a sealed official envelope or it can be sent through one of those professional individuals. Whereas with an unofficial transcript, it shows your most current grades from your academic year. So it kind of shows like those current grades. Usually a student can submit an unofficial transcript early in the college application process. But the most important thing is just checking in to see the requirements of the university and what they're asking of you. So next up, the R in TREAT stands for letter of recommendation. So there are many factors to consider when it comes to the recommendation, right? You want to think about, is a university recommendation optional? How many are required? And who do they come from? You also want to think about, what are you sending it for? Are you sending it in for like a scholarship consideration for admission? Are you just sending it for your admission application, right? And so, for example, with PLU, we're letter of recommendation optional. So it means that if you feel like a letter of recommendation will help strengthen your application, then you're more than welcome to send it in, but it's not required. However, something you want to keep in mind is that there are universities who do require a letter of recommendation and a certain amount of recommenders for that. So kind of leads into the next thing you want to consider of, who should you ask and when. So you want to make sure that you give your recommender enough time to highlight who you are as a person. Yeah, really highlight who you are as a person and really write a good letter of recommendation on your behalf. Especially considering that there are universities who have those hard deadlines. So you want to make sure you're giving yourself time, your recommender as well. Oftentimes, when a student is being asked for a recommendation, we usually want it from a professional or academic recommender. So think of your teacher, your counselor, or another academic administrator who can highlight your abilities in like an academic setting, for example. Or let's say if you are asking for a professional recommendation, how can they highlight your abilities in a work environment, right? So think of if you've done like a volunteering experience before, if you've done babysitting, or if you have a job, right? How can these individuals highlight who you are as a person? And so with these letter of recommendations, typically we want to see these students in a professional or academic setting. And so that's why we kind of ask these type of recommenders over family and friends, because they tend to have a little bit of those biases, right? And so again, you kind of want to see you in those academic and professional settings. Another thing as well is that these are uploaded by your recommenders. So hopefully it puts a little bit of relief on you, because it is something that your recommenders can send directly to the school or through apps like the Common App. So it's one less thing to worry about in your college application. And another thing as well is, don't forget to thank your recommenders and acknowledge the support they have done in your journey. They could have made a great impact to your application, and they also took the time to highlight who you are as a person and highlight your skills. So just don't forget to show gratitude towards them. Next up, the E in TREAT stands for essay. This is honestly one of my favorite things to talk about when it comes to the application, because I know that when it comes to writing the college essay, it can feel a little bit scary, right? So don't forget, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a webinar tomorrow regarding like the college essay, how to write in confidence. So don't forget to check that out. But hopefully some of the tips that I give you tonight will still make you feel confident in navigating this portion of the essay. So when it comes to the application, right, sometimes they're asking questions that are a little bit more straightforward, right? What's your name? What do you want to major in? What activities have you done? But with the essay, you have 100% control to voice who you are and an opportunity to tell your story. So don't forget to center yourself in these essays, because we want to learn more about who you are as an individual. So think of this as your opportunity to talk about your why, something you're passionate about, or even an experience that shaped you that you want to share with us as admission counselors, because we are the ones reading your application. You can also use this section to talk about new information that might have not been addressed in the application. So you don't like have to repeat information, but if there's something that you want to highlight that hasn't been like addressed in the application, then you're more than welcome to talk about it in your essay. But something I do want you all to keep in mind is that typically with apps like, or websites like the Common App, there is an additional information section. So if you want to write about something else in your essay, but again, you still want to highlight something regarding your application, you're more than welcome to use that section to talk about something regarding your application. So it's just another great place to add more information. If you're someone like me who needs to see the prompt beforehand to generate ideas on like what to write, and you have like multiple drafts until you get the perfect one, there's websites like the Common App who will post their essay prompts prior to the application. So maybe tonight, if you haven't started the application process, but you're curious about what prompts are out there, then you can definitely check it out. I know with the Common App, there's quite a few prompts that students can select from. And what's really nice is that there is one option where it's pretty much a free-for-all. And so if you feel like some of these essay prompts that are given to you don't really resonate with what you want to write about, then you have an opportunity to write about something that does. Overall, just make sure that someone proofreads your essay, right? Make sure that the grammar, punctuation, spelling, and flow and all of that is cohesive and very neat. Because at the end of the day, you still want to showcase your ability for college level courses, right? And you'll be writing lots of essays in college. So you just want to make sure someone has reviewed your essay and everything looks pretty neat. And also just know that you want to use your resources around you during this process, right? So you can have your teacher review your essay, your counselor, your friend, a family member, or you can even use your admission counselor like me, right? Don't be afraid to reach out to your admission counselor through this whole entire process because we do generally want to help you throughout this whole journey. So don't be afraid to reach out to us if you have any questions regarding any portion of the application. And also speaking of resources, we do have, there's another resource that you can see on the page, which is the college essay guide. So you can, so he pretty much quite literally helps students navigate the college essay by giving them tips and advice on how to navigate the essay. So next up, the A in TREAT stands for application. So as I mentioned a bit earlier, some universities do have an application fee. So some of the things you want to keep in mind are how many you want to turn in and what will be the cost for it, right? So thinking about how much you're willing to pay for these applications. And usually you can find the application fee on the school's website or on the Common App. And then just as a reminder, PLU doesn't have an application fee and we're free to apply to. And so you also want to think about where can you find the application, right? So as I mentioned in the beginning, there's typically 3 ways to apply to a university. So it could be through the Common App, the university website, or even through direct admission programs. Again, when in doubt, ask your admission counselor which pathway to take when it comes to applying to a university. And another really important thing is you really want to note the deadlines. That's a really important thing when it comes to the college application. It's the most important thing. And as you're going through this college search journey, you're probably going to hear many of these various terms that you see on the screen. So you're probably going to hear rolling admission. And what that means is that you can apply to a university even after their priority or early action deadlines. You might even hear terms like early action. And what that means is that you'll hear a faster admission response depending on the early action date. So kind of to put it in context, for example, PLU is a rolling admission university, meaning that you can still apply to our university even after our early action deadlines. And for the 2026-2027 school year, our early action deadlines are November 1st and December 1st. So if you apply by November 1st, then you should hear back from us by December 1st. So kind of putting into context, that's what rolling admission and early action look like. You might also hear early decision. So there are universities out there where students can commit to a university early on. And so something I do want to mention is that there is a difference between getting admitted to a university and also committing to a university. So when you're committing to a university, it just shows that you're solidified with your decision, you're going to attend that university, and you've paid your enrollment deposit, so your spot is secured within that institution. Whereas with being admitted to a university, right, it's just another way to show what options do you have in choosing that right college fit, right? So once it gets closer to that like May 1st decision day, like you have some options to choose from again to figure out what school feels like the right fit for you. And then we also have one date. So there are some universities out there where they do have one application date and then that's it for the year. So again, you really want to keep in mind the deadlines and what type of deadlines do these universities have, right? Are they early action? Are they early decision? Do they just have one date? Are they rolling admission? So those are some things you want to consider when it comes to the application. And then just as a reminder, we do have a holistic review when it comes to your application. So basically meaning that as admission counselors reading your application, there are many things that we consider into your application, right? We're not just focusing on one thing or one aspect of your of your application, right? We're not just focusing in on the GPA or we're not just focusing on that one class, right? Like we're taking a look at everything that you sent us. And so it kind of goes into this next section, right, of your activities and resume section. So one thing is don't sell yourself short, right? Involvement is a good reflection of you and your interest. And so an advice that I want to share with everyone is that with the application, you only have one time to turn it in, right? So I would rather have you put in as much information as you can about yourself instead of feeling like thinking back on the application, you've already submitted it and you're like, oh, maybe I should have added this and this and this, right? Like I want you all to feel super confident in the application. So add as much information as you can that you want to share with us. So how these things can look like, right, is like you can add in your school activities. So are you in a club? Are you in a band? Are you in orchestra? Are you in choir, right? Are you in sports? Or you can add in like non-school activities, right? Are you a part of like a church congregation, for example? Do you have any commitments or responsibilities outside of school, right? Do you take care of a family member, a sibling? Or you also want to demonstrate like your leadership and volunteering experiences, right? Like have you volunteered at an animal shelter, at a hospital? Those are the types of things we want to see and learn more about you. I think this section, again, is just another way to highlight who you are as an individual and a way to get to know more about you. I think with this section as well, you can also add in some hobbies and interests, right? So an example that I can think of is, let's say you're interested in drawing, right? It can show me that like you're a creative, dedicated person and you can have like unique perspectives. So again, don't sell yourself short, don't hold yourself back. And again, just put as much information that you'd like to share with us in your application. And so lastly, the last T in TREAT stands for test scores. And so when it comes to the test scores, mainly what we're referring to are the SAT or the ACTs. So something to consider is if a university is test optional or test not required. So to determine if a university requires a test score, then you can visit this website on the screen, that's fairtest.org. And you also maybe want to consider what test scores are required, if any. So like, for example, with PLU, we're test not required. So that means that students don't have to send in those SAT or ACT scores because there are other factors we consider for like the admission process, right? So it's those scores aren't necessarily for scholarship or admission consideration. And as of last fall, more than 2,000 universities and colleges were test optional or test not required. But just because universities are kind of moving away from the test scores doesn't mean that there are not universities out there that still require it. So again, you want to really know the requirements of those universities, as I've been emphasizing throughout the presentation. And then something you want to consider as you're going through your academic journey is when you should take those SAT or ACT tests and if you should take them more than once. So let's say that you decide to go the route of taking it more than once. There are some universities out there who will do a super scoring test score. So essentially what that is that if you've taken like a SAT or ACT multiple times, they'll take the highest score from each section and then combine them to make a new super scoring test score. So kind of just to recap everything that we've discussed, I say don't hold yourself back from all the opportunities that await for you your senior year. I know navigating the college application can feel very scary, can feel very intimidating. And so that's where, again, your admission counselor and the resources around you are here to help you throughout this whole process. The college application, yeah, again, can seem overwhelming, but less than 100 colleges in the US are highly selective. So that means that less than 25% of applicants get admitted, right? And so I know that seems scary, but let's take a look at our Washington schools, for example. So for example, with our public or state universities, right, their acceptance rate to UW-Seattle, for example, is about 42.5%. For Central Washington University, it's about a 90%. For Western Washington University, it's 91%. And for Washington State University, it's about 85%. So you can see that there is a chance for you out there to get admitted somewhere and to find that right fit for you. Or sometimes let's take a look at our private universities, right? Sometimes you'll hear individuals say that private universities can feel selective to get into, but you can see with PLU, for example, right? We have an 81% acceptance rate, meaning that 81% of our applicants do actually get admitted into our college. And so it doesn't have to feel like a scary process. University of Puget Sound's acceptance rate is about a 76%. St. Martin's University is about a 90%, and Seattle University is about a 76%. So again, I know this application can feel intimidating and scary, but if you think about it, why hold yourself back from the opportunities? So an advice that I've actually gotten before was don't be the first person to tell yourself no. And so that's something that I want to share with you all tonight is that don't hold yourself back from all those opportunities. And again, there you can get accepted and there will be a school that's just the right fit for you. And then we did talk about this a little bit earlier in the essay section, but there is that additional information section. So again, really just highlighting that if you want to highlight something in your application that maybe you didn't want to write about in your essay, there is that additional information section to talk about community disruptions, personal circumstances, or anything that's maybe affected your academic journey or grades or anything like that. So that's another opportunity to advocate for yourself. But overall, take your time throughout this process, right? Like this journey is your own and you're in charge of it. So be thorough and include everything you feel like you want to say in your application. And just know that there is an audience reading your application, right? There is a person or people reading your application. So as an admission counselor, I know I read my students' applications, so you definitely have an audience, but also we do enjoy reading your application. So just know that there's someone reading it. Now we're going to go more into questions. And so, kind of just to recap everything that we've talked about tonight, I think the biggest thing to remember is to do your research and use your resources. Again, this journey is your own, and you want to think about where you see yourself in the next chapter or your journey. So, learn about the schools you're interested in, right? Take the initiative to learn about the schools you're interested in. So, find out what academic programs they have and does it align with your goals? What extracurricular activities do they offer? Where is it located? And thinking about how far or close you want to stay away from home. How many students are on campus? And is it an environment that you know you'll thrive in? So kind of during this process, you gotta have to be honest with yourself, right? And ask yourself these questions. So then you know if you're gonna be able to thrive in a community, right? But also don't forget to use the resources and tools around you to help you in this journey. So you don't have to do it all alone. Some of the resources you have are like niche. So it's a college review website, right? Or you have the College Board, you have the Common App College Search as well. So there are some tools that can help you navigate this process. But most importantly, don't forget to reach out to your admission counselors. Speaking for myself as an admission counselor, I am more than excited to always help a student throughout this process. So just know again, as I've been emphasizing, we're here to help you throughout this journey. And so we're here to bridge the gap for missing information, and we just want to make sure you feel confident in this process. So yes, thank you all so much for being here tonight and taking time out of your Wednesday to join me today. If there's any questions, then we can go right into them. Alrighty, so it looks like there's no questions that came into the chat, but again, you are more than welcome to reach out to your admission counselor if you have any questions. It was really fun talking to you all about the college application. And again, hopefully I met my goal of making sure that you feel confident in navigating the college application. But otherwise, I hope you all have a great night and thank you so much for joining me.